Hey everybody, Freddy here with another video. If you're looking for information about Bitcoin, then you've come to the right place, because in this video, I'm going to tell you what Bitcoin is, how it came about, how to buy it, and how to use it. So stay tuned, let's get to it. All right, so the first item in the agenda is a little bit of history, where Bitcoin came from. And I know not everybody likes history, so I'm going to make this short and sweet and straight to the point. On October 31st, 2008, Satoshi Nakamoto presented the world with what is called a white paper. A white paper is a technical document that outlines everything on how something is going to be done. In this case, Bitcoin. What it is, how it's going to be implemented, how it's going to protect the consumer from things like double spending and things like that. I'm not going to go into the details yet, but in 2008, this document was presented. Nobody knows who Satoshi Nakamoto is. Could be a man, could be a woman, could be a group of people. For the purpose of this video, I'm going to refer to Satoshi Nakamoto as a group of people, as they. So they presented the world with this document on October 31st, 2008. On January of 2009, Bitcoin was born. So that's when the first transaction was ever recorded in something called the blockchain. I'm going to go into the details about what the blockchain is. So at this point, all we need to know is that in 2008, Bitcoin was presented to the world. In 2009, the first Bitcoin was created. That's when Bitcoin was born. Since 2009, Bitcoin has had a very interesting run. Lately, if you look at the price of Bitcoin right now, it's running at around 40,000 US dollars for one Bitcoin. It has gone up quite a bit since 2008. So now we're going to get into how it works. For that, I want to take you to the whiteboard and I'm going to show you how Bitcoin works. So let's go and do that. Okay, now that we've talked about where Bitcoin came from, now we're going to start getting into what Bitcoin is. And in order to explain what Bitcoin is, we're going to have to explain something or compare it to something that we know, or most of us know. So let's go ahead and do that. And let's start with Bitcoin is a cryptocurrency. And a lot of people say, well, wait a minute, what is a cryptocurrency? So there's a lot of stuff that we can open just by saying that Bitcoin is a cryptocurrency. But before we get into that, let's go ahead and start by defining or just looking at Bitcoin, how it works. So by doing that, we're going to start using what we call something that we are familiar with, a debit card. So in a debit card, when you have a debit card, you can see that there is a number in front of the card. And that number is what I'm going to call a public number. A public number is it just means that it's a number that you typically give out to people. Let's say you're on the phone, which not a lot of people do nowadays, but let's say you're on the phone and you're buying something and the person on the other line says, okay, I am ready for your credit card information or your debit card information. So you read this number out to them. Along with that, they ask you for the expiration date and some other information. But for the purpose of this video, we're going to say that this number is a public number because you give it out to people. You give it out to stores and stuff like that. Along with that, there's also something that is private. It is something that you should only know. It's a PIN code. That PIN code you should keep safe. You should not write it on the card. You should not write it on a piece of paper. You should keep it safe because this PIN code is something that you should only know, and that's it. What can you do with this PIN code? When you go to the ATM machine, you can put in your card, you put in your PIN code, and now you can take money out, you can do transactions, you can do stuff, at the bank or some other ATMs or things like that. So for the purpose of this video, this is called a private information, something private. So along with that, when you make a purchase, let's just say that you buy something, either you use your debit card or however you pay, that information goes to the bank. And the bank is going to verify that you have the money in your account to pay for this transaction. So how does the bank know? The bank knows by using what we call a ledger. A ledger It's just something that keeps track of the transactions. I know this is an old school, this is a vintage ledger, but you get the idea. It's something where people keep track of all the transactions, how much you paid, how much you received, how much money you have left in your account. All of that information is part of this system. And what we call this system is, we call it a centralized system. And the reason we call it centralized is because the bank is the one that is in control of your money in this sense, because the bank is the one that knows if you have the money, if you have what you've done, what you haven't done. So again, this is a centralized system. But what I want to do is I want to just make sure that we understand the public and the private, because when we get into Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, we also have a public and a private. A lot of people call it a private key. People, the private key, but it's pretty much the same idea. The public information is something that you give out to people. The private is something that you only know, and you have to keep it safe. So now that we understand this, now we go into the Bitcoin. Bitcoin is decentralized. What that means is that there is not one entity that controls Bitcoin. There is not one bank, there is not one government, there is not one entity that controls Bitcoin. Nobody controls Bitcoin. What controls Bitcoin then? What controls Bitcoin is the amount of computers that are connected to this network. This is what is called a peer-to-peer network. If you go to, if you look at how many computers are connected to this network at this point, there's over 10,000 full nodes, as we call them. Full nodes is something that keeps track of the ledger. Remember that ledger? The bank has a ledger, Bitcoin has a ledger. The ledger is just the record of transactions that are taking place. Every single computer in this network has a copy of this ledger. So if you need to make a change, you would have to change the records on over 10,000 computers. So it's not very easy. And this is what makes Bitcoin safe, pretty safe. So moving on, what is the ledger? The ledger is kept in something that is called a blockchain. But what is a block? A block in a blockchain is something like this. The blockchain contains a block, and one block has a lot of different information. One of the things that it has a magic number. It has all this stuff that you see on this list. It has a magic number, a block size, block header, transaction counter, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to go through every single one of those because for the purpose of this video is just understanding Bitcoin. So a block contains all this information, but what is important here is this previous block. The previous block hash is what turns this into a chain, because every block has information about the previous block. So as you can see, I put it in different colors here so you can understand that the purple is one block, the orange is another block, and the green is another block. So this is how the blockchain starts to be built up. The key here is that every single block has information about the previous block. It has what is called a hash. A hash is just the information that is contained on the previous block. So every block knows about the previous block. So now imagine every block knows about the previous block, and now this copy is on 10,000 computers. So it's not very easy to change information. And this is what makes Bitcoin powerful, because as the blockchain gets bigger, the information is safer. Wow, that was a lot of information. I know. So again, the reason I am showing you this is because I want to make sure that you understand that Bitcoin is actually the network. Bitcoin is not only the currency, the money, but it's also a protocol. A protocol is just the set of rules that define how this data is going to be shared, how this data is going to be protected, how this data is going to be manipulated or used. Manipulated is a kind of a weird word to use. But anyway, how this data is going to be used. I hope this video helped you understand how Bitcoin works and what it is and where it came about. In the next video in the series, we're going to start getting into how to buy Bitcoin and how to use it as well. So please watch the other video, and thank you so much for staying with me. Please leave any comments down below, anything that I missed, anything that I should have added. Please leave them in the comments down below. This is a new channel, so anything helps. Any subscriptions help as well. So I'm trying to build my audience, so please subscribe to the channel. And thank you so much. Until the next time, take care.